Are you ready? Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 1600 Unscripted, live in front of the White House. We've got with us a very special guest today named Sean Connolly. He is an investigator, an entrepreneur, a researcher who specializes in going after corrupt judiciary and law firms. Let's get him on the line.
Hello.
Hey, Sean, how's it going? This is Adam Villarreal joining you on 1600 Unscripted, live in front of the White House.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Doing great. Well, for those of our audience who haven't heard of you, can you fill us in a little bit? Who is Sean Connolly? And tell us a little bit more about your mission, what you've been doing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, I live in, Pennsylvania, otherwise known as Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, or specifically Collegeville, which is, where I reside right now. But, I have a background in private investigative work, military background, information technology, as well as law enforcement. So I was victimized several years ago when I bought a brand new home. My Toll Brothers, they're a publicly traded company backed by BlackRock, Vanguard, and other big dark entities that seem to have a financial grip and wealth grab on everything in America. But to narrate what happened to me is essentially when I bought this new home, I had nothing but major problems, framing, sewage issues, electrical issues, water issues with major storms. This went on for years, hired attorneys. Well, come to find out that these homes are being built by Toll Brothers, again, a publicly traded company, essentially knew about the defects that you've been selling to homeowners going on 2 or 3 decades. So this fraud accounts for $30-40 billion worth of real estate across the United States where they do business. They were founded in Pennsylvania, outside of like Willow Grove, Abington area. But so, Adam, to answer your question, so where this led to me now is, trying to get to the bottom of how this mortgage fraud existed and bank fraud and wire fraud with a brand new home. That, who was involved, who were the bad actors, and come to find out, even the people that are supposed to be helping you were also doing it wrong, including our attorney, our former attorney, Jennifer Horn. So in my quest to get to the bottom of it, I met a lot of people in my quest to find out who was responsible for this. Not only was the builder responsible, but there was other parties and other people that did business, banks, lending institutions, even the United States Security Exchange Commission, our federal branch of government regulators and watchdogs for our financial institutions and publicly traded corporations, covered it up.
So what started as something very personal for you, you started tugging a thread and that sweater started to unwind and you uncovered something much bigger than yourself. What did it feel like when you realized that you were onto something of that magnitude?
Well, when you first think about that, Adam, the first thing you think about is like, all right, who's out to get you? You're not suicidal and everything else you hear everybody say, because there's a lot of big actors involved, Adam. Including the governor of Pennsylvania that had taken money and donations from the founders and publicly traded company who also has a political action committee. A lot of law firms donate them, but to answer your question, it does a lot of damage. When the deeper you get into it, the more that tends to happen to you vicariously through these bad actors, or just the wear and tear on your body's unhealthy. That's the best way to put it. But what started out with my quest for me being injured and victimized, led into other areas and other people where not only were lending institutions involved, there was murder for hires. You're finding out about child sex abuse, the church abuse scandal, the political corruption that roots through your local governments and through your county and state and federal agencies. So, even in my township where I live, the attorney and solicitor resigned from the township several years after I uncovered a significant amount of fraud that would have affected hundreds, if not thousands, of other homeowners in the township. So it involved the police department trying to arrest me, having me charged for harassment when they're colluding with the builder and their legal team to basically try to make me go away. So to answer the question, there was a lot of harassment. They hired private investigators, risk management companies, high net worth attorneys, and even tried to use law enforcement against me to shut me up.
So we had a previous guest on the show, Leah Hopes, who had talked about similar lawfare being used against her when she was leading a grassroots endeavor to try to uncover corruption on a local level. Can you talk a little bit about Pennsylvania's infamous political machine? Do you think trust in the state government can still be salvaged? Where do you think people sit right now?
Honestly, Adam, Pennsylvania's pretty bad. I mean, all the way up from our governor, Josh Shapiro, down to, our local municipal governments. I mean, that's where, I'll probably tell you the same thing, that, it's the grassroots that affects everything else. So, even though the bigger puppets up top are controlling what's down below, it's down below. It's really, moving and grooving, getting the votes and making action within the community, but they're also receiving state and federal grants. And in your communities, in your schools, you see a lot of corruption on the school boards, specifically here in Springport Township, Upper Providence again. It's the same township community that I live in. I took my kids out of that school. They go to a private school now, thank God. But, the corruption's that bad. It's at your local grassroots where people have to get, involved. But from the up top side, you still have a lot of corruption that needs to be rooted out, with the Democratic Party and, even in the Republican Party. We have a lot of great candidates that are in position that are really not helping out, the demographics of, how Pennsylvania can get back to their state, get them away from George Soros-backed Josh Shapiro's. This guy's, sponsored by all the worst and worst.
So why do you think nobody else blew the whistle sooner? Do you think officials were silenced? Were they paid off? Or were they just afraid?
I think it's a combination of all of that, and they have families, they have careers. I mean, look, stepping forward or speaking up or going public with something that, is invasively damaging, which can put people in jail or, bring millions or if not billions in restitution, and people think it's just as easy as going to the agency and blowing the whistle. Remember that. What comes along with that is a black cloud that continuously follows you around. As long as you see it, you see it everywhere. It's not even hard to look for once you've been through it,
So one thing that's come up in interviews of this kind is the regular people out there want to know if they were to fall victim of attacks like this using lawfare, using character defamation. As somebody who's been through the ringer, as you say, what can you tell people to help them push back and to withstand attacks such as these?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, Adam. Look, I encourage people when they see corruption, because corruption's both at the corporate end of it and the public end. But, I had to find out for myself, just how invasive it was and destructive to my family and my life. And, at the end of the day, you don't give in, you don't give up, don't give in, and don't take a knee ever. But in the end, having to file criminal FBI complaints, that's number one. definitely file with the lower agencies, but these agencies are so corrupt. I mean, I can't be more clear. Even my local police department, the county agencies, the state agencies, I've investigated a lot of them. Local police departments to chiefs of police, special agents with the child predator unit, including FBI agents, which go, in the Philadelphia office. So, speaking to U.S. attorneys, and at the end of the day, like the corruption runs deep, and the only thing you can do to protect yourself is to expose it. Definitely investigate it. Don't just make supposition. Put it out there for everybody to see it, because not everybody's situation is the same, but they all come together after being victimized.
So as someone who's seen both sides of the coin, as somebody who has suffered from lawfare, as somebody who's investigated public corruption, what can you say as the American public feels this latest scandal of the Epstein files on everyone's lips? There's a lot of public mistrust going on right now because we can't seem to get a clear picture. How's your experience with public corruption and going all the way to the top, as you say, affect this current event?
Yeah, you probably heard a lot in the news over the past several years, like all these people getting FOIA requests for Freedom of Information Act, getting denied left and right. I have letters from the Office of Inspector General from the United States that tells me to file FOIA because I'm asking for an update and investigation, whether through the SEC, the FBI, the CFTC. Even there's corruption in the local state attorney general offices. The corruption runs deep. So, as far as having reliance on your local agencies to stop perpetuation of what's going on, it needs to be attacked locally. Unfortunately, the person that gets victimized needs to step forward, because the more I see it, it's your local agencies aren't even doing what they're there for. They're working for political movements. They have an agenda.
Do you see issues like this being slowly limited to the grassroots level? Is it people not pushing back enough? Or is it mirrored larger systemic corruption that you see spreading through the United States systems? How do you suppose January 6th and the investigations that are still left very open-ended by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi into that, how do you feel that contrasts?
Well, everything from the Epstein files to, I believe that was a Mossad, if it's not Mossad, it was a intelligence operations with the CIA. Because, the bigger picture is it could probably affect other people in other nations. And a lot of people called it and said that they would never let it out there. But I think the American people are disappointed in that regard, but trying to have faith in God in that. But in respect to January 6th, Adam, I actually thought going down there myself, and for some reason another guy, a veteran, talked me out from going down that day. And I know Leah Hoops and other people that were considering going down, and we didn't go down. But I feel that it was all agitated by a corrupt wing of our federal government. I think that was entirely all that. And I think anybody that got caught up in that, was certainly the guinea pig to try to stop an election from moving forward. And not only were there guinea pigs, but there were casualties. Just as yourself, Adam, you were a casualty of the January 6th event. That's a significant event that will go down in history. It was made up by, a very corrupt organization that was as well-oiled a machine to try to crush the good and our republic.
So what do you see as somebody who's been looking at this game from several sides for many years? What's a policy decision that could be made to help turn things around? I see in the American public a lot of apathy just because they experience this fog of war from conflicting information and they can't really determine what's up or down. So to the average person, we like to focus on this show about what's pragmatic, what could be done. Do you have any advice out there for the American public?
Yeah, you got to hold your public officials accountable. You can't just rely on them to move and shake and groove. I mean, that's the hardest part about it. You think if you go to them, they're going to take care of your problems, or and I talk to a lot of people, and they come to you and I'm like, well, look, what have you done? So you definitely want to get accounting, financials of agencies, and see how money's being spent. File your right to knows locally, because that will lead you into other areas and find other corruption and other fraud. And that's kind of where it brought me into, doing stuff with, very high profile situations with corrupt special agents within the Attorney General's office. With extracting information from corrupt, law enforcement agencies, both at the municipal, state, and federal level. And, that's the only way. And to answer your question, do I think that people are, not doing enough? Absolutely. I think either people think that these type of situations don't go on. I mean, look, it negatively impacts people, their families, their finances, and, has people out on the lam, and this is what they want. They want to break up your families. They want to destroy the financial system and destroy the middle class. And, the worst thing that has happened to any American family is the misinformation. And the misinformation is constantly being fed to the people that don't even want to do anything. But if people don't stand up and protect, what's right and what's valued, and what our forefathers did, then it's just all going to crumble. And that's what's happening with society right now. So people do have to get involved. Yeah, they do have to get, involved in their school boards. They got to get involved in their municipality, their county governments, their state governments, and ask them what they're doing. File right to know requests. If you see something criminal going on, call the FBI. File electronic tips. I convince everybody to do that. And don't give up. Because that's what exposes them. And once you expose them, it makes it that much harder to cover it up. And when I say expose them, make sure you put it out to everybody, your family, your friends, the media, law enforcement agencies, the DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, even in my situation, Toll Brothers or Josh Shapiro. Those are people that I give them exposure for what they are. They're frauds. They're all frauds.
Well, Sean, you definitely sound like you have a lot of the patriotic grit that we enjoy hearing about on the show. When we were doing the research for this episode, we were interested to find out that you were named after the first person who fell in the Easter Rising in 1916. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty close to it. Yeah, the captain, Sean Patrick Connell, he was a playwright and the first IRA casualty during the 1916 rebellion there.
Well, Sean, we're definitely glad to have you on, and we're glad to hear the passion behind your voice. We wanted to give you a minute to roll out any projects you're working on, any books you have going at Give, Send, Go. Could you talk about any upcoming projects you got, or roll out anything you have for us?
Yeah, I mean, if I could, aside from my own situation, trying to get recovery and restitution from being victimized by my family, but I'm helping out several people in different capacities. With children that have been kidnapped and with child molesters, kids that have been sexually abused. I've been involved with stuff that involved the cover-up of murders. Murder for hires, the church abuse scandals, and a lot of corrupt situation within the court. So people can get a hold of me on my Twitter handle, which is Connolly Sean, which is CONNOLLYSAN, and the number 1, or at my JoshShapiroFraud.com or TollBrothersFraud.com emails. You can link through the website.
Last question for you, sir. What inspired you to get into this line of work and then to summarily become so successful at it?
Honestly, I think of being attacked and being victimized and, lawfare and it did a lot of damage. I think any time that somebody gets victimized, Adam, it can either have a positive or negative impact. I mean, in my situation, it had a positive impact that, yeah, it took several years to get to the bottom of it, but like during the course of that, it's had another positive impact with other people. Because course of what happened to me and researching and getting to the bottom of it, you meet these other people or other victims, and they have some information for you, and then next thing you know, you're trailing off here, here, and here. So, I have done a lot of volunteer and advocacy work. I put my business aside to help out people. I believe in paying it forward. And, so there is a lot of positive that's come out of it. But, I like to remind people that this is the kind of evil that, destroys families, destroys, the good of what is in an American dream or an American family. So.
Well, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most important things that you can do to oppose tyranny, whether it be on the national or the grassroots level, is to simply have the gumption to say something and to galvanize into action, whether it be big or small. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining us today. Do you have any last messages for the audience there?
Just God bless America, everybody's family. We wish peace, love, and happiness, and our country move on vicariously and prosper with all prosperity. So.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today on 1600 Scripted, live in front of the White House.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody, thank you so much. It was a great episode. We'll see you again next week.